Species and organisms have adapted and evolved over millions of years for one primary reason: survival. The theory of evolution does not tell us how life began on Earth, but it helps us to understand how life, when it came into existence, diversified into the many life forms we see today. Evolution helps us to understand and make sense in which modern creatures continue to adapt and change. In simpler terms, evolution is any change in the heritable traits within a population across generations. Come along with me as we explore and discuss the many fundamental aspects in which evidence of evolution is provided. Survival is what evolution is all about. The changes in species through hereditary traits have resulted in traits necessary and required for an organism to survive in its environment. Examples of this are shown in many species, such as birds, insects, and mammals. Take insects for example. Insects, such as the peppered moth, have developed an inheritable trait of color. There were those that were of darker color and lighter color. As the Industrial Revolution progressed in England, the trees were covered with sulfur gas from the factories, turning the tree trunks dark. This provided an advantage to the darker moths as their dark color provided them with camouflage to hide from predators. However, the light-colored moths stood out to the predators, resulting in a major decrease in light-colored moths. This evolutionary event provides much evidence, not only for mine but many other scientists' thesis, that desirable traits in which species acquire result in survival, or survival of the fittest. A common misconception about evolution is that it cannot be observed or tested. There are many ways to test for evolution. One evolutionary mechanism that can be tested are mutations. Mutations may occur due to exposure to antibiotics or chemicals so much that an organism may become immune to it. This mutation may be passed through hereditary traits of a period of time until that entire organism and its species is fully immune to that antibiotic or chemical. Mutations can be tested and observed in laboratories and in the wild. For example, if one was to spray a chemical to kill ticks, one of those ticks may have a mutation, therefore being immune to the effects of that chemical. The tick will pass that mutation to its offsprings, and the same mutation will be passed down from generation to generation until that whole species is immune to the chemical. Scientists have tested and observed mutations in ticks and other organisms as they evolve through biological evolution. Therefore, evolution can be tested and observed. Other evidence that proves the theory of evolution is found deep in the earth. They are millions of years old and tell a fantastic story about life on Earth. These priceless remains are known as fossils. Fossils provide solid evidence that organisms from the past are not the same as those found today. Fossils show progression of evolution. Fossils, along with the comparative autonomy of present-day organisms, constitute the morphological and anatomical record. Now, organisms through centuries have proved much of evolution through a system known as natural selection. Individuals that are better adapted to their environment tend to survive and produce more offsprings. The theory of its action was first fully expanded by Charles Darwin, and is now believed to be the main process that brings about evolution. Much of this theory can be seen in beetles. Within beetles and many other organisms, there are variations in traits. For example, some beetles are green and some are brown. Examples of differential reproduction is also found in beetles. Since the environment can't support unlimited population growth, not all individuals get to reproduce to their full potential. In this example, green beetles tend to get eaten by birds and survive to reproduce less often than brown beetles. The hereditary trait of brown color is passed down to the offsprings of the surviving brown beetles since this trait has a genetic basis. The end result of this evolutionary process is that the more superior trait, brown coloration, which allows the beetle to have more offsprings, becomes more common in the population. If this process continues, eventually all individuals in the population will be brown, proving that natural selection does not involve organisms trying to adapt. A major misconception about the theory of natural selection is that it is the only way populations can change over time. This misconception is disproven in many ways. Evidence shown through selective breeding, or commonly known as artificial selection, shows that humans can dictate an evolutionary change in species. This defies the claim that organisms can only evolve naturally. Artificial selection is the intentional reproduction of individuals in a population that have desirable traits. In organisms that reproduce sexually, two adults that possess a desired trait, such as two parent plants that are tall, are bred together. Artificial selection may also be seen in dogs. If a owner of dogs wanted a breed to contain the traits and characteristics of both a Doberman and Black Lab, that owner would breed a Lab and Doberman together to create an offspring that contains the characteristics of both of its parents. Over a period of time, this process could create an entire new breed of dogs. As you can clearly see, there is much evidence to prove the theory of evolution and disprove misconceptions about it. As life progresses, so will change in the life forms as we know it. This is Brett Larkin, signing off.